Hi, I'm very glad to invite Ms. Hills, a real beef expert from Canada who used to raise cows with the family and who also happens to know a lot about rectopamine and mad cow disease. And that's been a very hot topic in Taiwan because we have had 3 meetings on rectopamine and how that can affect our not only human health but also the effects onto our soil actually. Yeah. So what do you want to start with?
Well, I guess I'm actually not familiar because I didn't read about that, but have all the meetings been closed door? Because I know the first one was. What about the second 2? Were those open to public or no?
The third one was open to public.
Okay.
And the first and second were closed meetings.
Oh, okay.
And after the third one, which actually was very controversial, that a lot of the experts who were opposed to importing U.S. beef with rectopamine were saying out loud with facts. But then just yesterday, the administrative yuan just announced they're gonna import U.S. beef with rectopamine on conditions that they're gonna put labels on. So for a lot of people here, the ideas that they argue with is that if you import U.S. beef, then that means, because sometimes, you know, a lot of the illegal businesses will actually mix that up and put another label on. So it's really just no use having those restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing to understand about, like, it's not just rectopamine, but like there's other chemicals in beef as well, and if they're, you know, testing for that but not something else because they're so concerned about one thing, then something else could slip through as well. So I mean, I guess it's hard for a lot of people to imagine what cows look like that have this type of, you know, are being fed this type of thing. First off, I mean, in the United States and Canada and a lot of countries, selling beef and cow, you know, pork and chicken, it's a really big industry, and the animals aren't necessarily treated fairly. So that's something, you know, else of concern. But obviously for people who eat meat, they don't really care so much about that. But if you look at a cow that has been, you know, fed naturally, that cow is gonna, you know, be calm, and it's gonna might not necessarily be bigger because this hormone is, you know, makes cows bigger.
Lean.
Right.
The muscles more lean,
right.
and actually quicker to be killed.
Right, exactly. So it's like a regular cow would take 2 to 3 years to grow that cow, but this one maybe like 6 months to a year, something like that. You could, you know, begin to.
Is that why the U.S. is pressing so hard?
I think because of the recession, a lot of farmers are feeling the, you know, strain of that.
I see.
And, you know, Taiwan is the only country that doesn't accept beef from the U.S. There's a lot of countries that still don't accept beef from the U.S.
But with conditions also.
Right, you know, and
Korea has.
But with conditions,
right.
Yeah. I think it's just not good generally. I mean, you know, these types of animals, like when.
But what about the report that says there are like 160 countries that have banned the imports from the U.S.?
I think that was like a general ban on like all like hormone cattle hormones, and ractopamine was one of them. But what people I don't think understand is that it's usually not like they're just feeding that cow ractopamine. There's other things in there as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just like ractopamine. They need other steroids and stuff like that. It's basically they're taking these animals and they're putting them on steroids, and just look at what that does to people. When you put people on steroids, they get addicted to that, and then they have a lot of body complications. It's the same thing. Like I'm sure if you did an autopsy on a cow that was eating growth hormone, that you would find some problem with like their lungs, their liver, their heart might be enlarged or something like that.
Right. And we're so used to eating the intestinal organs.
That's right. I know, especially in Asia, you guys do.
Right.
And that is absorbed, intestine especially, that sort of thing.
And the residue doesn't really go out.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't think so, no. If you like, for a lot of people, I think in Asia, maybe they haven't had or eaten natural beef that was grown by farmers who grass.
We have local Taiwanese beef that might not be, of this climate, but they still try very hard to survive.
Okay.
And this import of U.S. beef is gonna impact
them as well.
The industry in Taiwan, and that's why a lot of the groups are organizing protests.
Honestly, I mean, it tastes better. Like when I go home and I eat beef that I get at home, it tastes so much better than beef that you can get in the store because of all the processes that they go through to
I've heard actually they've used like dead cows and actually they grind them into powder and they add them to the grains to feed the cows.
Yeah, they used to do that.
And is that why there was mad cow disease?
Exactly. That's what happens. So it's not just like cows and pigs and sheep and all those,
So this is like cruelty period, isn't it?
In a way, yeah. I mean, like all these types of animals are not meat-eating animals. They're herbivores. They only consume grains. And so that's how, mad cow disease started.
But when they are basically coerced not to have other options, they will eat it. Like I saw a YouTube video of a really skinny cow eating a tiny chicken.
Yeah. They will.
They will.
But I mean, I would guess I guess the problem with like cows and other animals like that is they have like 4 stomachs. Cows have 4 stomachs.
Right.
So they don't know when to stop eating. So you just feed them and they'll eat anything. So that's why, things like this, you can just feed them and they'll eat it anyways. Yeah. But I would imagine that they would choose like grass. That's their natural, disposition to choose something like that. And those animals are, I mean, when we were, growing up, cows and stuff like that in my home, they were always well fed and stuff off of grass. They don't need this naturally. People need this.
Did mad cow disease really hurt your industry
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the price of beef just fell, and they weren't importing beef from the U.S. first, and then they found that problem in Canada as well, and they weren't importing that, and then after that it was like.
But how did your relatives?
My family specifically. At that time, we weren't raising cows, so
you stopped for a while.
Yeah,
and then you wait until the disease went away.
It was like after we'd been. So my father was raising like cows when I was younger, and then when I was older, he'd like changed to just become like a hobby farm. But I do know other people who were selling cows at that time, and yeah, I mean, the Canadian government had to like sponsor them and help them, because
with ractopamine,
with mad cow disease.
Help them, subsidize.
Right, exactly, because they couldn't, they weren't making any money. And the thing was, most of them, there were no problems, so they just wanted to prevent any spread. But this is just something that, ractopamine is just something that people are using to make more money, honestly. The more cows that you can put out and have slaughtered, the more money that you can get.
And
it's
we're at the expense. Our health could be at the expense.
Right. And the thing too is, and I know that they do this in Canada, is like, it starts out always with like, oh, we're going to label it. And then after a while, that kind of just is like, oh, well, do we really need to label it anymore? And the next thing you know, maybe not your generation.
They will be slacking.
Your kids' generation is not going to know about it, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.